Good morning and welcome to Wise Tech for Wise Money. I'm Gary Wayne, founder of A1 Solutions. We work with founders, leadership teams, and businesses to improve efficiency, scale intelligently, and grow through smarter use of technology, using systems and operational strategy. Today's episode is titled Why Smart People Make Bad Decisions: Clarity, Perspective, and Performance in Business. Today's conversation is about something that sits underneath every business decision-making person. Not lack of intelligence, not lack of experience, but lack of clarity and perspective on how that impacts performance, leadership, and results. I'm joined by Marta, I hope I pronounced it right, founder of Lightbulb Perspective, with over 25 years in global financial services, including senior roles at Citigroup, operating across multiple regions and amid high-pressure environments. Hi, Marta. Great to have you
Hi,
here.
hi, Gary. Thank you
A
so
long
much for
time in
having
the
me.
making, but I'm glad you're here now.
Exactly. Thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. I think let's kick off with you tell us a bit about your history, about your journey. I mean, you spent over 25 years at Citigroup, although you don't look old enough to have done that. And maybe you could enlighten us on what you learned and how you got to where you are.
Thank you so much, Gary. And I think, yes, it has been a journey and an exciting one. And, I'm privileged enough to say that I've been on many different avenues, and that gave me the experience I have today to help people on their journey. I started out in sunny Budapest, as I call it, where I began sort of my life and education. And then I started already working at Citi, so at Citibank back in the days. And then I love the country, but I thought that I needed a bit more horizon expansion. And that's when I moved to the UK with City. And in the meantime, I had different assignments and worked in Tokyo, worked in Athens. I was out in Luxembourg and New York. So traveled the world and learned a lot. I was in securities and fund services, running various local, regional, and then later on global functions in terms of market intelligence. And what I loved, of course, in the 25 years that I spent there is the variety and the diversity of people, which was amazing when we're talking about smart people and decision making. I also learned about, of course, what it is to work in a high pressure environment. And, that's not to be underestimated, because when we talk about decisions again and how people react and interact, that's very much driven by the environment you're working in. I had the privilege of working through extreme high pressured scenarios, such as watching the Lehman crisis from top of Canary Wharf, or talking to people who are literally in a war zone in different countries, trying to tell our customers what is happening around the world. So that required, again, different interactions, different skills to bring that to the clients. So I had the privilege of seeing that live. After my career at Citi, I went into the entrepreneur world, as well as the helping smaller and mid-sized companies in terms of business strategy. Then I ventured into energy and AI, as well as medtech and corporate finance. So again, it gave me a different perspective of how the high pressure environment still remains, but how smaller firms, individuals, founders, CEOs of startups are looking at the world, and how that dynamic works as well. Again, with genders, with short term and long term views, personalities. And I think that's a very, very exciting area to look at as well. In the meantime, of course, I was going through my own, and it's very important, major life transitions in my personal life, marriage, kids, divorce, managing, your work life, your family life, like everybody else. And that is one of my points, which led me to Lightbulb Perspective and setting it up. because everybody goes through multiple of challenges every single day. You may just see one side of it, and we cannot look at a worst person just as one person and one angle. We have to look at it holistically, and that's why at Live by Perspective now I help people to get clarity and perspective holistically overall, not just career, because they may be influenced by something else, how they can make decisions and have a more fulfilled and happier life.
So you're a little bit of a psychologist.
You see, this is very interesting one because I often act that way because I sit somewhere between, in a B2B scenario between the employee assistance programs and therapy, and in the private scenario as well between therapy and your best friend. My key is from both scenarios is it's going to be a real conversation. It's going to be experience based. You can find everything else on AI. You're going to have the experience based. You're going to have no fluff, total confidentiality, and no judgment. I think that is what we need. Otherwise, we can't move forward.
I mean, you've had a big journey and encompassed obviously a lot of experiences. What has that taught you about people and how they make decisions? I mean, you've been dealing with people at high level for a long time. We all look at these people that sit in the big office and think they're infallible and that they can't make mistakes, but obviously they do, and they're just human. What was it taught you, on dealing with these people about decision making and dealing with that pressure?
Very, very good question, Gary. Um, Absolutely. You said one of the points which you just already highlighted is one of my five. I look at it in this scenario, which is you think you know it all because you've done it before. Doesn't quite work that way. So that's one issue. The other one is decision fatigue that impacts for example, executives. If we think about it, which is a crazy number, an average executive makes 35,000 decisions a day. Now, admittedly, some of those are extremely micro decisions. Am I having coffee or tea? 50 of those could be high stake decisions. Now, when you have under pressure, as you said, you have to make those big decisions. Sometimes they won't be right. In fact, 40% they're not right. So that's where it goes. As you said, you're sitting in your big office, and all those people are, back to your point, smart individual. The bad decision they're going to make is not going to be due to lack of intelligence. It will be the lack of clarity, perhaps, in situation, the lack of information. And what I call is the third point is the emotional contamination. You're not just sitting there and everything is rosy. You have no clue what goes on in your personal life, and we cannot isolate. We're humans. Once we just deal with robots, we can isolate that. But at the moment, we have to look at, do you have something major going on at home? It could be sickness. You could be going through divorce. You could have an issue with your parents or child. So there could be a lot of personal issues that will contaminate your decision, because I may walk in with the biggest problem I ever had, but you just came off with the worst conversation of your personal life, and you're not going to make the right decision, or definitely not the best. Also, the illusion of competence, people thinking my judgment is going to be the right one because I've done this for 30 years. Doesn't work like that. You have your experience which you bring in, but you can listen to a diverse junior person who's going to have a completely different view, and you have to adjust your thinking. And also what we don't consider is the stress level and the load on those people. And once you have that sort of crisis level and stress level and load, which is what I call the corporate smile, you may smile and say everything is fine, but it's not fine, and it will cloud your decisions. So it is very, very difficult. And of course, then comes in your culture awareness, your personality type, your leadership type, because you may make the same decision, but how are you going to get there? How will your team react to that? What style of management you represent? Are you long term, short term? Are you just looking to, and I've seen this before, of course, I'm here for 2 years. I'm just going to make the most amount of money. I don't care if the company falls down after me or not. And some people want to have a legacy and they don't care about the money now. So it influences the decision. But yes, I've seen some interesting scenarios.
You mentioned earlier on emotion.
Yes.
So, yeah, I've been in charge of a few people in my time, back in the day, as we say. Uh, and I think one of the hardest things is you know what's right, but you like the people, there's emotional involvement, even though they work for you, yet it's so hard to do the right thing, which is tactically the right thing, but maybe wrong emotionally. How do people deal with that? That's, to me, is the biggest stress.
It is a huge stress. Again, it's a huge stress for people like you, and this is where personality comes in, who happen to have empathy. Because you're already mentioning about how that will impact the team, how will people feel. A lot of people do not make decisions based on how the people will feel or how even they will feel. They make a decision because that's what needs to be done, and they really don't look at the emotional side as much as, let's say, you do. So you're going to come to a different decision making, and that will alter, that may influence the result. Now, the emotional decisions are not bad, but they may just come with a different outcome. You may make a decision that you consider your team and the emotions. Now, that may mean that your team is much happier, they're going to work much harder for you, and ultimately you will achieve that bottom line much better, much quicker than the person who doesn't make sort of emotional decisions. It's hard to manage. Sometimes there is a balance, but this is where you need diversity in a workplace, in my view. Diversity of different personalities. You need diversity of people who are looking at the detail. You need personalities who just look at the overall picture. You need the emotional ones, the ones who don't look at the emotions, because then it will all balance out. And that's one of the issues as well, that often we don't challenge decisions when they think they're wrong. So it is definitely but it's good to study personalities, good to see where everybody is coming from, talk about it, not just dismiss or judge based on what you know on the surface.
Really, to get the right balance in management, you probably need two people at least, not just one boss, but two people to work together in managing whatever operation it is. Because, if you've got someone that's more direct, less empathetic, and then you've got another guy that's a bit more emotional, you get the best of both worlds. But sometimes if there's no empathy there and you're just following a rule book, it can be a disaster. You mentioned being involved in crisis environments, war rooms. What stands out from those experiences?
That's a really interesting, and the funny way the human mind works. When you talk about those extreme pressure environments, you think back and like, oh, wasn't it great to be in that war environment? And at City, we're very good at that anyway. And it was very, very interesting, because that's when the real sort of personal types come out, but also the different decision making strategies and thinking. Again, that obviously suits certain types of personalities, because you really have to think very, very quickly on your feet. And in those situations, sometimes speed and quick decision making will have to come first. It has to be correct and it has to be as good as you can. But I remember those situations when we were trying to put together something which went out to the top institutions you can name in your head in the world, about what's happening right now. And we had to get it right, but it had to be very quick. We couldn't mess around. So that required a certain thinking, and some people just cannot take that heat. So I think in those situations as well, you need to have those kind of people in the war room at the center, who are driving that sort of fast-paced operation. But I remember having people on the side of the war room who were just overseeing and occasionally stepping in, like, hang on, have we thought about that? So you need those kind of things. You need the extroverts, introverts, the judging personalities, the feeling personalities, to make sure that you're having a balanced decision, and not blame, and work as a team. That's another thing. In the high pressure environment, it's easy to get a little bit too heated, because
Sure.
it's enormous pressure.
Why do smart, experienced people still make poor decisions?
They do, because unfortunately sometimes they're not having the information they need. They make decisions too quick. I've been in situations when I had a client, a very, very large client of mine, well, the top names in the industry, and that was something I had to clear and have approval for at a very senior level. And I got time, but like literally this 3-minute conversation with one of the senior guys from New York, and I started. I knew that I had to be very concise, very quick, very to the point, and you know, like there was no time to fluff around. Even then, I was very prepared. He kind of stopped me, even like I don't know, 50 seconds into it and said, yeah, go, approved, go. And I'm like, I'm thank you, but I don't think you have all the information to make that decision. Thank you for the trust. But you see, like situations like that, it could have gone wrong because the
Sure.
person certainly did not have the information level. So, and often it depends, you know, again, it's not about the intellect. A bad decision can be made statistically at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Bad
Really?
decision. Yes, yes, there is such thing
So
as
3 o'clock in the afternoon is
exactly,
bad time.
exactly. From then onwards, you know, try not to make, you know, or ask seniors to make huge decisions. And it depends because, you know, again, emotions. I've seen people making trading decisions based on, I'm hungry, gotta go for lunch, or oh my gosh, my wife or husband will kill me if I don't leave now. I leave, whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's do that. So you know, there's a lot of elements which come to this. But if a lot of people's judgments are in a fog, and unless you clear that fog, you're not going to have the clarity to make decisions as well. And that's why I'm looking at people holistically. It's not just what leadership style, what is your goal, what do you want to achieve, how much money you want to make, because there's a lot more to it, and we uncover all those other elements and remove the barriers for you to make clear decisions and good decisions.
So talk me through a process. I come to Light Bulb. I want to be a client. You know, I'm all over the place. I've got a very important job or a lot of responsibility. I can cope with pressure, but I'm not performing as good as I think I could. So tell me how you deal with it.
Sure, great question, Gary. Again, at Lightbulb, I deal with individuals and as well as corporates, companies who want to have this perspective on an individual basis in their teams or as a team, events, lunches, workshops, etc. But you as an individual coming to me, we have to first of all uncover what's actually behind, what are the issues that's stopping you, or you feel that you're not performing as well. Because sometimes people, what I've seen, they actually don't know what the main issue is. They haven't yet even realized, let alone name it. So first, we have discovery sessions, we chat, and it's really, really like, think about it like you think talking to your best friend or your family member who actually won't tell everybody else and will not judge you. So we are that's my USP. So we uncover what's actually stopping you. And once we, what I call name it, we name what is the issue, because it could be nothing to do with your performance. You are an extremely intelligent person who's very focused, but what's actually holding you back is your cousin is sick at the moment. I'm just making something up. But you never linked that that's actually playing on your mind on a daily basis. It could be something holding you back from childhood, from a bad experience a month ago, or seeing your friend go through a horrible experience at work. So it could be various things, and sometimes what I see people don't actually realize. So once we named it, we named it. We know what it is. We can focus on that. And then what we do is reframe that and change the perspective, how you're looking at the situation. Because maybe you thinking this is a career disaster, it will be an opportunity for you to do something completely different. And I've seen it. I've seen many people like that. So at the moment, it may feel a disaster, but 2 conversations later, I love it. Let's do it. It's fantastic. So I think that's very important to move the remove cloud and reframe it and look at it from a different perspective. And once we named it, reframed it, that's when we can decide from clarity. That's when you can say, right, tiny little thing in perspective change can shift a lot. I've seen it. I've seen it many, many times. It could be just removing one thing. I could just say, one thing which you never thought about, and you like your light bulb moment comes, as I call it, and you think, oh my gosh, that's it. I've got case studies. I could be here for 10 hours telling you case studies of people where the tiny little shift changed. I had a client who was a very, very senior, extremely bright, of course, high performing, hard worker, professional female, very senior, and she has not been sleeping for years, and she was high pressure environment, but she was very good at it, and she didn't understand what was happening. And then through a couple of conversations, we managed to pinpoint actually what was the issue, and she changed it, and that's it. From then onwards, the life returned, which is just a tiny thing, but when you're too involved, you need somebody else to come in and help you
Yeah,
see
I
the light.
agree. Let me ask you a question. So you get situations where people are successful, everything's going well, they seem to be very lucky. Whatever they touch turns to gold. Then they make a decision or something happens, and all of a sudden they seem to be very unlucky. And then all of a sudden the dominoes start falling, and whatever decision making they make seems to go wrong, and they can't get back to where they are. Do you get situations like that, and how do you change it?
Yes, we do get situations like that. We also get situations like you think that they have it all, but they don't. Or they are deep down unhappy and insecure and actually miserable, or not as great, or never grateful. That's another thing. Never grateful. Typically, successful people who you mention, unless it was really an overnight success, which often it doesn't happen, they would have gone through already failures, what we call failures, what I call learning. As Edison said, I've just found 10,000 ways how it won't work, so now I know how it will work. Here's the light bulb.
It's
So
true.
it's true. He never looked at it as I failed. How many people would have carried on 10,000 times? After five people, after two people say, oh, that doesn't work. So Edison just said, I now know 10,000 ways. It doesn't. So it's helping reframe for those professionals who, let's say, now it's going bad decisions, bad decisions. It's how we're looking at what is the actual issue here. How are you actually mentally looking at your decisions now? When they have those sayings, the black cat walks across the street, then you're going to have bad luck. Well, of course, because now your brain says, oh my gosh, I'm going to have bad luck. So one bad decision when you're not used to it could influence your brain, like, oh my gosh, I've never made a bad decision. Now I'm going to make another one or something. And of course you will, because it's in your head. So this is the classic situation when we say, let's just take a step back. Let's just reframe and see what went wrong, what influenced your decision at the time, what actually happened, and then you can reverse this, and you don't have to go down some slippery slope. You can get back to where you need to be. You may just need to change the way you were doing it, change your mindset, take a break, go take a week out in the woods on your own and think. So there's various ways depending on the personal situation, but we can absolutely shift back with mindset.
In high pressure environments, financial markets, corporate leadership, what actually breaks down first? I mean, we've seen situations, in trading and all sorts. Like if we talk about Nick Leeson and people like that, I'm sure they never set out to go crazy. What sort of is it? Stress and personal situations that impact those type of decisions. That makes these problems, become immense. What's your experience and how do you deal with that? How do you correct it?
Very, very, very interesting question. And really, most of the times, it's personal decision, personal situation behind it. So often people who commit fraud, for example, you think, oh, they're fine. They may have an extreme financial pressure in the background, which you are not aware of. Therefore, they're going to make decisions which are not going to be preferential. People just say that, oh, they want to be rich or they want another designer handbag. Often not. Often they're forced into a situation like that as well because of some personal circumstances you're not aware of. I've seen personally at work tragedy tragedy in the worst possible outcome with a person who ended his life at work. And immediate rumor mills, of course, start. Oh my God, he was a traitor. Oh my gosh, he was theft, stolen, everything. It's a new unique lease, and this is what's happening. Oh my gosh. And this went on, of course, until we found out that it had nothing to do with that. It simply had to do with the fact that he could not bear that his wife filed for divorce because he was deeply in love with her. As simple as that. So these are the hidden things that you often don't see behind people's decisions, bad decisions, good decisions, of the personal backgrounds. Often the case.
Yeah, I can understand that. You mentioned examples where deals have fallen apart because of cultural misunderstanding. Can you sort of explain on that?
Yes, absolutely. I've seen one not too long ago. Cultural differences when I was consulting for a company and put the deal to it was pretty much a conclusion where one party was kind of ignorant to age, experience, wealth, culture, and all of those together um, basically managed to lose the deal within 15 minutes because the client at the other end of the phone did not respect sort of any of those boundaries, and due to that, but when you think that you know it all and you go into a situation and you don't listen, that this is different, this is, you have to play by the rule, and it's different, culture is different, and don't look down on a person because they're younger, because they may not be, they may be just as good or better or whatnot. And it was a situation when this person who was in the mid 50s looked down on this 35-year-old, but the issue was that the 35-year-old actually was running a multi-billion company from a very different culture in Asia, as well as the Western culture, and that just didn't work out. But the 35-year-old walked away in 15 minutes because he felt disrespected and he didn't want to deal with such people.
Yeah, I can understand that. To me, I don't think age matters. I don't think culture matters. To me, I always wake up every morning thinking today's a new day, and I don't know anything. What can
Love
I
that.
learn? Who can teach me? I don't care if they're 10 years old or 20 years old or 100 years old.
Love
I just
that.
want to learn new stuff. And I
Love
think,
that.
but a lot of people are very arrogant, very egotistical.
That's what happened here.
But a lot of those people are in good positions. So how do you deal with that?
Very, very good question. And I often think about it myself. I often think about is how, but it goes back to the decision making again. Those people often are successful. Again, how do we find success? Successful because they have X amount of money on their bank account and all the assets and the wealth. Doesn't mean they're happy or successful in other sort of measures of life. But often, a lot of the times, those people, let's say they're going to make those decisions which are not going to be as empathetic as you were saying a little while ago. They're just going to make it because that's what we're doing. If I'm saving money and I have to cut 4,000 people right now, I'm going to do it because that's what is happening. I don't really going to think about the 4,000 people and empathy and what are they going to do, poor people. If I have to make this to make that money and to run the company and help or please the shareholders, a lot of people just make those decisions. So a lot of it comes from that sort of mentality that they're just going to make very harsh decisions. There are people, of course, who are extremely successful in every way and they happen to be empathetic, but maybe less so in the whole scheme of things, and it's hard to deal with that.
You come from Citibank and you're used to a trading environment. What I never understood was this. In my career in trading and broking and whatever, you had a guy on the table or the desk who was a superstar in what he did, i.e., very good trader, made a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, because he made so much money, they promote him to a director or whatever. But he's a rubbish manager.
Oh, yes.
They've rewarded him and given him a different role because of his skill set, but the skill set doesn't apply to the new role. And generally, those people don't make good leaders.
100%.
Why does that go on? It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure it still goes on.
It doesn't make sense. There's again, it's a human psychology thing, and you're very glad you're touching up. Leadership is my passion. The way I define leadership, I've met very few leaders who I call leaders. I've met a few, and I've met some wonderful, absolute professional. But to this example as well, it goes on a lot in banking. Just because you delivered your goals and you went, the bottom line is there, and we hit the revenue target for this quarter, you can be an absolute horrific person to deal with, and your team works for you out of fear, not because they respect you, they have all the time for you, and you're a true leader, which of course later on will bite you. But often and unfortunately, this is promoted. It happens everywhere. But then again, let's look at the leadership who promotes that. Because again, if you're an empathetic leader who is focused on the business objectives, of course, that's your primary role. You can get that, but if you promote this kind of behavior, there are other ways to promote this person. You can make him the head of sales, or the project team who's running the sales optimization, a program, whatever he's really good at, because clearly often what happens is that people don't want to lose this person because he's making a lot of money. And of course he can be really arrogant and say, well, you can't get rid of me, I'm the top salesperson in this organization. So again, companies should look at the skill sets and apply it appropriately. But again, it comes from top down, how the leadership looks at this and on the top. And I'm with you. I'm completely with you. And a lot of people are extremely good professionals, but they are absolutely rubbish managers, let alone leaders.
Tell me a light bulb. I mean, are you a coach or an advisor? And who are your typical customers? Are they CEOs or middle rank people or anybody?
Anybody. Anybody, typically, of course, it will be a sort of more established people in typically in high pressured environments, finance, corporate world, high net worth individuals, and of course on the B2C side, and of course on the B2B side, it would be lawyer offices, companies, banks. We're talking. This is people who are more established at that road. But they realize that at some point between their, let's say, 30s and 60s, that, hang on, what am I doing? I'm actually not happy. I don't know where I'm going. I'm not happy at work or at home, and or cannot function as both. I feel like a loser. I feel, like even if they're very successful, often insecure and just, as I said, miserable. So the typical client would be those people who are at those crossroads, whether it's relationship, whether it's divorce, breakup, issues at home, and career. I've seen a lot of people who changed career completely, and now, of course, with young generation, you have 4 or 5 different jobs and functions, and you're doing one thing during the day and something else at the weekend and at night. So the clients typically would be people who just need a little perspective to achieve a huge change. Often what I've seen in their personality, sorry, in their fulfillment, as well as confidence. A lot of the times I deal with people who look confident on the outside, but they're really not confident on the inside, dealing with imposter syndrome, dealing with I've just lost confidence because I'm feeling a midlife moment, or at home I'm really unhappy because I'm not fulfilling. And of course, social media and the people, the smart people telling you why you're not good at things, as you said. So it's various things. But what we do is we spend time and uncover really what the issue is, and the reason why. This is not therapy. This is a practical sort of removing barriers for you to make decisions. This is not therapy. This is looking at what works, what doesn't work, what are your real issues as a person. And I think that's the difference, and that's why I sit between sort of in the work environment as well, between the assistant programs, which is only 3% utilized, which is ridiculous, and the therapy with someone who they can be confidential. And I won't judge. I'm just going to provide a perspective, which then
So,
can make the decision.
is your skill set a light bulb, asking better questions rather than giving answers?
Correct.
And how do you help someone move from confusion to clarity quickly?
Very good question. And the thing is, I do move quickly. I had somebody recently who said, I've spent 4 years in therapy. Now we just spoke twice and I'm done. Now I know, now I know where I'm going. It's really sometimes very, very simple. I'm not some genius who's going to uncover some major things, but because you're so involved, you're so into it, you cannot see the woods, and that's why we uncover what is the actual barrier and what is the actual issue, because as I said, often people don't know, and then just bit by bit remove those, so your clarity, and then you realize that, oh my gosh, I never realized that what's really been bugging me is, or I never realized I could do this. Or recently I had a client who had a relationship sort of question, and I don't say to people, oh, you better do this or that. I just asked a few questions, exactly what you said. And before I would even say anything, the person says, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I'm not actually, I'm not actually thinking about her as a person in this relationship. I'm talking about a person, a woman. I'm not. It's not about her." I said, "Well, then you have to make a decision how you're going to continue." And he just gained clarity that right there and then said, "Thank you very much. I know what to do now." That's it. And that happens on whether it's career crossroads, whether it's relationship. Of course, I have the experience. Again, it's all experience based because I've been there, because I've been a career woman or entrepreneur, been a mom, a single person. I've been divorced, married. I know about toxic relationship as well as healthy relationships. So about teenagers, etc. So I've seen it all, and that's why I can provide that experience-based, no fluff perspective, which tends to help.
So I've seen that in a lot of hedge funds and tough environments, they have people like yourself, that are actually there to talk to the people
Yep,
to maximise, their return, maximise their ability by helping them solve their clarity and think straighter, and obviously put emotional stress to the side. How are you selling this and getting your service, which I think is immeasurable for today's society, into organisations? Are you talking to a lot of companies, and are they beginning to recognise the need for people like yourself and your service?
absolutely, extremely good question. Sometimes the way I look at it is, of course, I'm passionate about people. Therefore, I want every single company, every single manager, leader, HR head to think the way I think of people are what it's all about. But let's say even if you're not that way inclined, let me just give you the numbers. When you're paying somebody 100% of salary and they are going through a major life transition, such as divorce, which doesn't take 2 weeks, it can take 6 months, a year, 2 years, I've seen 5 years. You are statistically paying that person 100%, but they performing at 60%. So you're right there, average. You're right there, have a 40% productivity loss. Therefore, you're paying 40% of their money for nothing. Some days, of course, that's 80, some days 20. The UK alone loses £257 billion to disengagement from employees. Only 10% of employees are actually engaged, which is a crazy, crazy number. The ROI, again, just to talk about businesses, the ROI to get somebody like me in at the hedge fund is for every £1 you spend, actually your ROI is £4.7. So that's fairly decent. And also, just one person's retention already pays 10x for what you're gonna spend on this service. So it's kind of a no-brainer. And for people who really care about A, the people, B, their bottom line, C, their sustainability, because and social responsibility, because at the end of the day, if so many people, 61% of people wanting to leave work because of mental health issues, and 1.1 out of 3 people have mental health impacting their abilities to work, absenteeism costing millions to the economy. So you see, so even if you're just looking at the numbers, it works. Even if you look at the human side, it works. So I'm trying to get more people engaged and more people spend money on that, because it will have a win-win for the company and as well as the people inside. Happier employees, the morale, the team, it will definitely increase productivity, employee satisfaction, shareholder impact, and this is just a win-win for the company as well as the employees.
I think the need for your services must be immense, but probably a lot of people don't realise how much they need it. It's getting the message across. I'd like to ask your perspective on social media. If we look at social media, and I'm talking about all ages, social media can be damn right depressing. As much as it can be uplifting, you know, you can connect with people you've not seen for a long time and keep in touch with family that you don't get to see. You know, I use social media all the time. I use it for business and I use it to learn, but I also find that it can make you be chasing impossible opportunities. I mean, it can make you be very successful in your career, but when you look out at what you think's going on in the world, you're not successful at all, because all these stories that are being shown in social media, everyone an advert about how this guy got rich, how this one got rich. How does that overflow into business, into how businesses are perform, and how does it actually affect, you know, employees, because they're looking at social media as well, and they might be doing very well, earning a reasonable salary, performing well, but then they look at this and think, God, I'm not performing at all. What am I doing wrong?
100%. And I'm a big fan of technology, AI, and tech and everything, but I'm a big fan of staying human and apply it sensibly. It's a very dangerous slope, of course. Even with adults, I see that they think everybody else has it. Everybody else has so much. The grass is so much greener, and it's not true. So again, put it in perspective that what you're doing is so much. Step by step, look at your day and be grateful for things you get. I often meet professionals who admit that I've been working for this goal for 2 years, I've just achieved it, I feel nothing, I don't care, what's next? Like, so we don't even stop to think, oh my gosh, I'm so happy and so grateful that I've done this, this is amazing, well done me. So we don't step, and I'm guilty. I've been starting to get better to stop and celebrate, or just even remark our achievements. To your point, because if you always think you're a loser, you need something to pull you back and think, no, 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 I'm not a loser. Yeah, social media will say everybody's so much better than you, but that's not true, because I've done this, this, this. But you have to have almost like a daily reminder of being grateful for what you are, who you are, where you are. Also to look at realistically some of those, if you know those people, you know what's really behind. And then of course it's a wake-up call, like, I know Joe is miserable and he doesn't go there. My favorite post was, do you remember when somebody did like a loose seat, and they took a picture of the loose seat that it looked like they're flying somewhere because it looks like the airplane. So I just always remember that often that's how it's done. It's not real. So again, looking at, and if you feel, I have people who said, okay, I need to detox, I'm coming off social media for X amount of time, or I'm only looking at it this way, or I'm only spending this much, or as you said, what I use it for as well, business and learning. It's brilliant. Try not to get involved with the rest, and definitely if it's harming your confidence and you cannot yet do something about it, just step back. If it's good for you and once you've changed your perspective, then you're good to go. And that's why we work on your confidence levels as opposed to everybody else's, which you cannot control. But we can control your confidence and what you're looking at and why.
So you mentioned AI and we've talked about social media. How do you see, I mean, social media is new. All this stuff is new, really, in the scheme of things. How do you see it evolving over the next 5 or 10 years? I mean, where are we going to be in this world of technology, social media, everything instant?
Yep.
Especially and how it affects employees and people at the top trying to do a job. The actual, subconscious impression it puts on you, but you don't even realise. How are we all going to deal with that? Because it's only going to get bigger and not necessarily better.
That's very true. And that will require another huge shift, which is already happening in countries like the UK or the US. That requires a huge shift and looking at the world in a very, very different lens. The classic, oh, AI will take your job. No, AI won't take your job. The people who are adapting and using it, they may. So we have not much choice but to embrace it. But again, embrace it in a moral and ethical way, in a sensible way. And often people not, and they won't do that. I think AI, of course, brings the enormous advantages. Talking about the bad decisions, AI at least will take away those. It gives us the data and enable us to make quicker decisions on the lower level. But we'll need us to make the decisions at the high stake level, and also to really bring in the human and the moral side of things. What's going to happen? Nobody knows, even the experts on top, they don't know what's going to happen. What you have to do is embrace yourself and try to learn, try to diversify, and really stay on top of the trends. And at the moment, with people like me, that's why the personal brand is what the key here is, because soon, if social media will be full of AI me's,
Yeah.
you won't know which one is the real one who's actually worked that city and which one is the one who just says they work that city because they are like some AI person looking like Marta. But once you establish, the personal brand, then you will know me. Oh, that's the real Marta. Okay, fine. We go to her because she at least she knows. That's going to be challenging as well, and it's already
Is social
challenging.
media causing a lot of mental problems?
Definitely, it's causing a lot of problems as much as it's helping a lot. And the information, I mean, you remember we used to go to the library or something. Now we don't have to do that, so the benefits are enormous. But of course, it is a lot of mental health issues coming out of that if you don't handle it well. Of course, there's a huge debates going on about that in person, teenagers, kids, governments. That it just goes on. I think there's a lot to blame, and that's why we have to keep it real, keep the perspective going. But it requires a daily reminder to most people. I speak to clients who would have a meltdown on a given Tuesday because of that. But then I would be having the conversation. Let's just step back for a second. Let's just look at this from a different perspective and let's not get carried away. So it's challenging, and it's going to be challenging even more so when people are feeling the impact of AI even more so, and they're going to be lost, or they're losing purpose, or they're finding their ways. But this is when the shift in perspective is going to be even more crucial to help
I
them.
think, I deal in AI, and I think the biggest thing about where we are, because it's so new and evolving so quickly, is the feeling, and I look at it all day long because I'm, implementing systems and this and that and the other.
Sure.
It's changing so quickly, you feel like you're in a race, but you just can't keep up with. And I think that's an inordinate amount of pressure that people are under.
Yes. Yes, it impacts all walks of lives. It impacts human relationships. For example, on the relationship side or dating side, it's impacting already people. I read statistics about young people, for example, in the States, already having AI girlfriends, 50% of them. So it's changing a lot and it's going to be accelerating even more so. So I think
Yeah.
nobody knows what's going to happen, no matter what they say, is my view. But it's just something that we need to keep a very close eye on. And I think personally, just our responsibility is to use it in a sensible way, in a moral way, and something that's ethical. And by all means, increase efficiency. And let's let's take those tasks and things away which we don't want to do, and so we have more time for the human interactions. I think that's what it is. But even in the last 2 years, the top use of AI was already therapy and companionship, as opposed to doing the dishes.
Really?
So yeah,
It's unbelievable.
it's quite.
If you could fix three things overnight, or just before we wrap up, in how people make decisions in business environments or in leadership thinking, what would those three things be, if there are three things?
Let me think. There would be probably 100. Um,
Or
but
the
but
top three?
tough. One thing that comes to my mind at this stage and age, as they say, it comes with the territory, that I wish people did make decisions like a true leader, like considering the people around them. And I always tell people at this stage and age, I want to be working with people who I want to be working with, who I would like to meet for a drink or have lunch with. So I think to put more emphasis on the human interactions and not just you get lost in the numbers. The other thing I feel is people are uh, very multi-sided and multidimensional. You have to, I guess, more tolerance and acceptance for the difference in diversity in people. I'm not just talking about gender and color and all that. It's the thinking, and I think with AI as well, the emotional intelligence and the what comes with that will be the key the survival skills, soft skills, communication skills, empathy. So I think that's the other thing I wish more people had. And I think a lot of the third thing would be is again going back and going back to the roots and forming more the communities and sticking together, because whatever is coming is going to require people pulling together more to survive, as opposed to pulling apart when you're losing your purpose, when you're replaced. And it's going to be the creativity. Creativity will have to come in more, and as I said, communities and helping each other, because we will all need each other more to survive what's to come. Whether I find it very exciting, but of course it's going to have very, very challenging moments, and everybody's at the moment when you open the news, it is already challenging. So it's just to try to make the most of it. And I, at this point, I always say to people, just remember, it's supposed to be fun.
So, in wrapping up, what's your final thoughts for leaders or advice for leaders and operators listening?
My final thought is, with my experience and seeing what I've gone through, what other people have gone through, my final thought would be to take a step back and think about what's important, what you're taking to the grave and not, what your legacy means. Is that really just a bank account or your name on a plaque, or really to be looking back and being proud of what you achieved? Most people regret things they haven't done as opposed to have done at the end. So I think just to step back and look at how you view the world, how you interact with people, what's your real sort of goal which you're running towards. I've seen a lot of people shift because they realize that's not me anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. What am I doing? Just chasing this dream based on somebody telling me what to do. So I think it's just self-reflection and changing the perspective so they can be happier themselves and ultimately make people around them happier.
Fantastic, Marta. So, for listeners that want to learn more about Lightbulb and want to get in touch with you, Marta, where can they find you?
Absolutely, on all social media, but my website, which is everything, is lightbulbperspective.com, and you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Substack, LinkedIn, of course, Facebook, and it's Lightbulb Perspective handle on all social media, and of course Marta Galancher on LinkedIn. So I'm always there and super happy to engage. You know, we can book in a discovery call to see where you're at, what we need, and I'm going to be always very, very straight. I can help or not, how can I help, and how it's going to what it's going to mean to you. It's not about selling my time. It's selling the outcome and the result and how you're going to be better after that.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I have. I've
I
learned a
very,
lot.
very much
It's been a
did,
pleasure
Gary.
having you as a guest. For listeners, as usual, I'm Gary Wayne from A1 Solutions. You can find me on LinkedIn on my website, www.a1solutions international with an INTL on the end.com. We'll be back within the next couple of days with another Wise Tech for Wise Money. Thanks for being on our show, Marta. And I look forward to talking to you again in a minute. Thank everyone for listening and watching us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you so much for
You're
having me.
welcome.
Thanks.